Hey, welcome to The Sinner and the Saint. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm Allison Kane.
Hold on. Did you notice that when I got here today, I have not said, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out?
I did. And with a rainy day, I was kind of expecting you to be like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah.
For real, y'all. Your girl over here, she lives close to Wade Avenue, and if you drive on 440 or near 440, or maybe you have a friend that lives near 440, they have told you that every week,
It's so true.
they change the way you exit. And so many times I've had to be like, hey, so I don't know, the signage is really weird. I missed the exit yet again. If you're not paying attention, you are going to be on the wrong road, and you're going to have to reroute, redirect, and be late.
She's not over exaggerating. It's awful. Like for the first time in 3 or 4 years, I can actually be coming from east on the Beltline and circle around towards my house on Wade. You could always go towards Chapel Hill, but you couldn't circle back to Raleigh. You had to take an exit before or after for like 3 years. And then all of a sudden we're driving. It's like, oh, it's open now.
Right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
But then you're like, is it really open?
I know, I did say that. And then our son, who was here for the holidays, of course, is new to him. He was like, where are you going? Because we always have to get off on this one before. And I was like, ooh, the exit's open now. He was like, what?
And you guys, it is so bad over here. Like during the state fair time, way back in October, I said, hey girl, just so you know, I will not be there next week. I'm not even going to try.
I'm thinking about starting a petition to move the state fair.
Oh, I thought you were
From
going to say
Raleigh.
it'd be easier for you to move your house.
Oh, well, there's no room in the city for all that.
Right.
Like,
That's true. It's true.
Go to some big country field somewhere.
Okay. I just want to remind you that last week you were saying holy absence, so you cannot start a petition right now.
Oh, yeah, I was just joking.
Okay.
Everybody would be mad at me, too.
I'm like,
all those state fair lovers.
Girl, that is a hassle you do not need in your life right now.
I know. I have all the way till fall before I have to deal with that hassle again.
I think you should just book the month of October out.
I should.
Go to the beach for October.
That's a good idea.
Done.
For those 2 weeks. Check.
Holy
all right.
absence. Booyah.
Absenting over to the beach area, people. All right. We digress a lot.
Yes. Yep. Sorry.
But we were talking about roads and exits.
Right.
Well, we're going to talk, kind of goes with our scripture.
Nice.
Yeah,
There are lots of roads when you read the Bible. They're
There
always
are.
walking on a road. It's a dusty road. Someone's on the side of the road. Sorry.
Road to Emmaus, road to Damascus, road to Bethlehem. Okay, so I was in Matthew 7, which is Sermon on the Mount, part of it.
I love the Sermon on the Mount.
I know.
But must I remind you, can you please tell us, because last week you sent us a little a little jolt when you said, I'm now in the Voice translation. Is that what
Oh.
we're reading again?
It is today.
Okay.
It's not every day.
So, it's the Voice again. So here we are, just flowing with Allison.
I wasn't even going to read the whole thing. Yeah, I'm not reading the whole thing. It's a lot. You can read it yourself in whatever translation you like. But I'm going to give it to you in a nutshell.
Okay. I like that.
Okay. Because it's really all of Matthew 7 where he starts with, we've all heard this before, that there are two paths before you. You can only take one. One gate or doorway is narrow. One is wide. Mm-hmm. Which one are we supposed to take? The hard one. The narrow one.
Right.
Of course. But everybody else, lots of crowds take the wide one because that's the easy one. But we're going to be a little bit lonely, but we need to take the harder one that's more narrow. That's the one to Jesus. All right. But what's really cool that I noticed is as he goes on in chapter 7, he keeps talking about twos. Kind of reminded me of the ark,
Oh, we were just
in
reading that
pairs.
yesterday. Yeah.
Were you?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so he goes on. So not only is he talking about like two gates or two doorways, he talks a little bit later in verses 17 through 20 about two kinds of trees and their two kinds of fruit. And then he talks about two groups of people at the time of judgment. And then he talks about two different kinds of foundations. And I love it because the battle is, in our life, there are two paths before us. So there's always a choice, is what I see in my mind. But you only get one. And so we can take, which road do we want to take? The one to Jesus or away? That seems really easy.
Well, I think, like, as you're saying this, I'm just thinking about our culture today and how the mainstream would tell you there are many, many paths. There are many different ways that you can do
Yes.
this.
What do you feel like today?
Right. And so I'm sitting there listening to you going, how many ways have we corrupted this?
Yes, this is the truth, people.
And overcomplicated it to the point where now we're all confused. But if you just
Totally.
go back to God's word, shocker,
Yeah.
it's pretty spelled out.
It's, I know, like easy, not easy. Okay. Because let's go through them. It's easy and it's not easy. Of course, like if the narrow and the wide gate. Okay. If you're going through a gate and you're running to escape something,
Yeah.
you're going to run through the wide gate. If you go through the skinny gate, like you may have eaten too much turkey and cheese biscuits like
Might
me.
get mauled a little bit.
Like you might rip your shirt because, and scratch your hip, whatever. But is it worth it? Because one leads to death and one leads to life. Right? And then these crowds of people that we follow. I love what you said about social media. It's so easy with social media just to follow the crowd. I mean, they have algorithms that just read our brains, you
Yes.
know, like what we're, and then just throw all this stuff in front of us. And then we're like, oh, yes, I need that. Oh, I want to do that. I should do that. Blah, blah, blah.
But better yet, it makes you think everyone else is thinking the same way. And so who wants to go against what everyone else is thinking?
Right. I know. Oh,
Sorry, kids. You guys have
Sorry.
a really hard... I mean,
Y'all do.
we all have it rough, but man.
it's just terrifying to think about.
Yep. So, moving on.
Moving on. So then he talks about two different kinds of trees. I mean, and it is true. I mean, of course, there's different types of trees, but there's a healthy tree and there's a diseased tree.
Yeah.
Like you're either healthy or you're not. And then based on that, your root system and the health, that's the kind of fruit that you produce. You can have sweet and ripe fruit. Those are the ones I like. You might like the sour and the rotten one. I don't know anyone who does.
Them sour candy things those kids like, maybe.
Yeah, but that's different than eating rotten fruit.
Oh,
for sure.
yeah.
And then it's like, okay, looking at that, I love these visual examples of, what does it take to have a healthy tree that produces good fruit? And it reminds me of James 2, where he talks about our faith and and he kind of asks a question. He gives us a formula a little bit. It's like salvation equals faith plus works. We mess up that formula a lot. I mess up a lot of formulas in math in general, but we get confused with that formula because we will often take it and think, well, I have faith, so my works don't matter. But that's not true, because if God changes your work, if he changes your heart and your faith, then work comes. You want to do and be his hands and feet.
It's
right?
a natural progression.
It is.
Yeah.
And then we can flip to it. It's like, well, I do. And you've heard people say this. Well, I don't really believe in God, but I'm a good person. I do lots of nice things and I support these charities and la, 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 la. So that my works give me faith. It's like,
Or
nope.
give you salvation.
The only work, that give us salvation. So the only work that gives us salvation was Jesus's work.
Yep.
The work he did.
Yep.
But that's what this kind of reminds me of. Like Jesus, James kind of goes back to these. But anyway, then we get to two groups of people at the time of judgment. And this goes in with that James 2. It's those with real faith that was shown by a change of heart and led to action. And those with barren, dead, desolate faith that only spoke of it and no action came from it.
Uh-huh.
Do you know those people in your life?
No, no.
No.
I was for sure one of those people. I think anyone as a brand new believer that accepts Jesus, you don't run out of the gate doing all the right things. Or,
No.
you're still
Shoot.
so self-serving and you're still proving yourself.
It's
or
still
trying
hard
to,
now.
Yeah, but I think over the years, God changes your heart. And then I feel like once I understood that, once I understood a little bit more and a little more mature, then I still had a really hard time engaging with other people because I wanted to like tell them the truth, and I wanted to like hit them over the head a little bit with, their, with God's truth. And I wanted them to conform to what I think that they should be doing, but that's not what God says. God says,
Right.
love them. And so I think it's a process. So if you don't necessarily have works and you don't feel like God has given you to work yet, maybe he's resting you and teaching you.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I think we have seasons of that too.
Yeah, it's kind of back to the two roads thing. It's like you can judge people or you can love people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to pick one. There's one path.
I love that right there. We could say that and we could just stop right now.
I know.
Like, hey, Christians, you can judge people or you can love people, and the Bible tells you to do one of them.
Yeah.
And specifically tells you not to do the other.
It's like it reminds me of like when you go to the eye doctor and they're working on your prescription and they put you in that machine and they're like, all right, tell me which one's clear. Lens 1, number 2. And you're like,
do it again.
2. Yeah, I know. I'm always like, wait, do it again. And then it's like 2. And then they're like, okay, lens 1 or lens 2. And it's like honing in, but you don't get to pick both. Like you get one.
Right.
And taking those little steps, like going through that process, like there's 2 choices. You pick one. And if you pick the right one, the clear one, the better one, by the time you get to the end of that test, then you've got a prescription where you can see clearly.
Yes.
If you've messed it up along the way and lied about it and not chosen the right one, you're not going to be able to see clearly with your glass,
Well, I think the other thing I was missing too was it's not my job to pull someone along their path.
Right.
They have to do it. And so, that actually is, I do think some people get a lot of head knowledge, but they don't allow it to seep into their heart, and they don't get the knowledge from God and the experience, the personal one-on-one experience with God. And so those people are very obvious to me in groups.
I think that is why, for me this year, like we talked about last week, I want to do less structured things. And I want to leave more space for God to intervene and put people in my path to work, because there's something about choosing that path, paying attention to that path, and helping those people and being his plan A, like a blessing to them. And it's so crazy. I had this experience over Christmas where I was able to help someone do this random thing that they asked me to do, and they were terrified to ask me. And it was the thing that blessed me the most over Christmas. And it was like so eye-opening to me and such a reminder, like, okay, you can stay busy with the hassles of life, or you can choose to have the margin so you can be hands and feet of Jesus. Like you can't have both.
Yeah. Would you
mess it
agree that you don't come out of the gate thinking that way, though?
No, definitely not. Oh my gosh. And still it's hard to do because there are so many opportunities to do certain things and structured things, because here's what we love. They're measurable, right?
Predictable.
Like when people say, well, what do you do? Oh, I go out every day and leave margin in my life, and I'm the hands and feet of Jesus. Okay, oh, well, I'm an author, I volunteer at the blah, blah, and I do this, and I'm a writer, and la, la, la. Like, right? Which one sounds better to the world?
Right.
We like things as humans that are measurable and that people understand, because that's what makes us, so that's our natural go-to. It's really hard to step out of those natural confines of the measurable accountability things.
It's so fun because I think God's going to do something even new again with you in that space. So I'm happy to be along on the ride.
Oh, thanks. Well, that leads us to the last 2 section in verses 24 and 28, where he talks about there's two different kinds of foundations. And I do love this one in the Message. But, you can have your firm foundation, the one that's on the rock. Or you can build it on sand. You can build your house on sand. It's going to be a little shifting and a little shaky. I can't even run on sand. It's so unstable. But you can choose only one path that's before you. So, when you build a house, you think about that. You don't get to go back and change the foundation just like that. I mean, obviously we're people. We can always go back and bolster our faith. But you think you choose the foundation before you build it. You can't just change it once the house is built. So sometimes we got to tear down the house.
Yes.
And we have to rebuild. And don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to tear it down and start over if you're feeling like you need to, or that it isn't a firm foundation or what you thought it was. Tear that down, tear that belief down, tear that old way, that old system of thinking, maybe that you grew up with. Maybe someone taught you, maybe unfortunately it was someone in your church, or maybe it was a parent or a friend or a situation that you were in, that you have built your life on that foundation, believing those lies instead of the foundation of God and His truth of who you are. I feel
like that goes back to the question I used to ask myself, and I still do, which is, who told you that?
Yes, I love that question. I love it when you ask me that sometimes.
Who told you that?
Who told you that?
I ask my kids all the time.
She can whip that out. I'll be like, blah, blah, blah. She's like, who told you that? I'm like, oh, me.
I'm imagining right now, this is a time of the year, I think, where I just know a lot of people that are discouraged. I'll say things like, well, what is God telling you? Or have you heard from God on that? And they genuinely just look at me and say, no, He's silent. So I feel like those people, us people, might need to tear some things down. And I know you have one more point, but are you going to tell us how to start?
No, that's all the twos.
Okay.
That's all the twos.
So if I am someone that feels as though I'm either saying, is this all there is to this Christianity thing because I'm not feeling it? Or I don't hear from God and I don't feel His guidance. What do you want me to do?
I really think it goes back to what we talked about last week.
Okay.
And Psalm 46. It sounds too simple to actually work, but it's Psalm 46 verses 8 through 11. Basically, be still, be calm, see, and understand and know that I am the one true God. If we'll just be still and regroup, when the lies come in, when the silence is there, if we can again not panic, when we face the two paths ahead, the two roads, and we have to choose, don't panic. I think, you were talking about roads and, being from the South and all, as y'all can probably tell from my accent. We name things in the South like, the country road, or the curvy road that leads to the beach, or we have all these names for our roads. Like, we lived on the little dirt road growing up, or the river road, or whatever. But in the Bible, you will notice that the roads that they call roads, it's the road to Bethlehem, the road to Damascus. It's not a description of the road. It is they name the road based on where it's going to take you. And I think so often in life, what we get confused and we kind of take the southern route and we think that our life is summed up and defined by the obstacles we face, like the landscape, like curvy, dusty, all the pitfalls, the potholes of the road. But that's not true. What defines us is where the road is going to take us. So where do you want the road to take you? I mean, hopefully the road that we're on and all the potholes and all the obstacles and all the landscape, I mean, surely they affect us, but hopefully it defines us because it takes us to the feet of Jesus, to the firm foundation, to the healthy tree with the good fruit, to the way of life, not death, to the narrow gate. It makes it more comfortable to get through the narrow gate. And so, honestly, being still and regrouping when you're sitting at that, which way do I go?
Okay, another
Instead of
question.
just responding.
Another question.
Was that too long of an answer?
No.
Okay.
I'm a new believer, and I do not get in the Bible. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
The Old Testament's so boring. It really can be boring. But where would I go to get the most traction for my faith? What book would you have me start in? Because I need tangible. Like,
Yeah.
I'm desperate. I've been like, kind of like running around the little pond of church for a while, and it's just not pulling me in yet.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Gospels. I mean, for me.
Okay, hi. I'm a new believer. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for clearing
Thank
that
you
up.
so much for clearing that up. Okay, really good question. Love you. So in the Bible, there is an Old Testament and a New Testament. And between the two testaments is basically 400 years. The New Testament is when Jesus comes on the scene. And all of the stuff from the Old Testament, all the prophecy is like come to life. And it actually happens and is lived out. Now, the Gospels are the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. A lot of people say John.
Yes, I've heard that too.
I mean, whatever. I'm a Luke lady.
Obviously.
They each come from different viewpoints.
But it's the story of Jesus on the earth and
But
how he
it's
interacted.
Exactly. And he is speaking in there. And it is the story of his bloodline and the fulfillment of his prophecy, his birth, his ministry, the miracles. It brings it to life. And then also his death and his resurrection, and then the promises. And then whatever gospel you pick, because they all overlap.
Yes.
They're kind of they're the same story. A lot of them tell the same ones, but in different ways. I would like research who they were and how they wrote it, and see which personality of the three gospels of the dudes that wrote them, the four, what personality you like.
Right.
And read that one. Like, doesn't have to just be John.
It's so funny that
John's
you
so
picked Luke
basic.
because I knew
know.
you were going to pick Luke because he's a doctor.
Yes.
And he's like super brainiac like you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like Luke. Like,
Right.
if you want it, like, keep it simple, blah, blah, blah. Like, John is great. But I like the more complex, intricate. And they do overlap. And anyway, because they're telling the same story. But they tell it in different ways with different details because of who they are. Even though none of the facts change. And then just go right into Acts. The beginning of the church. The Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus. Oh, gosh. I mean, I would start there in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. But research who they are and their personalities. I think that's a great way
That
to go.
is actually fun.
Instead of just John. I'm sure he was a good dude.
Right. I'm sure it was. So you
I
guys,
mean, he's in
here's
the Bible
deal.
and all.
You might be wondering which way do I go this year. And I think last week we did a really good job of kind of like setting the precedents for slowing down and kind of like defining where you are to know where you're even starting from. And then this week talking about, you know, which way should I go? And, you know, defining the paths and that sort of thing. Next week, we're going to talk about the choices that we make and how they will make or break our path decision.
Yeah. Once you take that path.
It's not like once you're on the path, there you go. Oh no, there's lots of little side roads to get you back to the wrong one.
and there's detours to take if you're like, you take the path and you're like, oh, I made the wrong choice.
Yep.
I see that now. God has opened my eyes to it. There is not a way not to, you know, there's always a way to do a U-turn.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. All right. We're giving you a lot to think about this new year.
Welcome to January.
Welcome to January, but be still and know so that you can awake and emerge this new year. Thanks for joining us this week on The Sinner and the Saint.